That's the tricky bit, isn't it, Nick Clegg? The women in that piece we just heard saying they love Brexit, they might have been Lib Dems. Now, if they hear you talking about the EU or campaigning on that at all, they will think that they're not your people anymore.
Well, we'll see over the next 7 weeks. I think the thing about Brexit is it's not just really about whether you voted this way or that way last June. It's become the kind of vortex, the prism, through which everything else is now refracted in British politics.
So do not talk about that.
Well, I'll give you an example. Those two ladies, I don't know them obviously, but I suspect they'll be pretty concerned that under this Conservative government there is a funding crisis in the NHS, there is a terrible crisis in social care which is not being addressed, and there are huge swinging cuts to the school system. And I think one of the things we will be explaining to them is, look, whatever you voted in the Brexit referendum, having such a Brexit-obsessed government means that they're not doing their day job. They're not providing the decent public services that people want. And that is part of the problem.
Does
because
that mean
Theresa May,
in terms of the way you campaign, then, that you will not be, as it were, banging on about Europe? You won't particularly mention Brexit.
I bang on about Europe at the drop of a hat and will continue to do so.
Even in the southwest, even in the Brexit voting areas.
You can't hide from people the fact that this general election has been triggered by the Prime Minister for very cynical, opportunistic reasons to obviously capitalise on the weakness of a principal opponent, Jeremy Corbyn, but also to frankly get an election in and to try and hoover up a landslide majority before the bad news of Brexit comes.
Let's talk about the hoovering.
So whatever people choose to talk about, Brexit will be the dominant theme. You can't hide away from that. But the idea that you can't talk about the way that Brexit, ironically enough, means that the oxygen is being sucked away from other things that people passionately care about, schools, hospitals, social care and so on.
All right.
I think all of these things are linked and all of these things should be discussed.
Do you think you can repair the damage that was done to you or that you did to yourselves last time round?
Look, don't ask me, I'm not objective about it. I think it's a nonsense, this idea that the coalition is the ball and chain around our... I meet countless people who actually now say...
I'm not talking about the coalition, I'm talking about the fact you lost a lot of seats. Do you think you can win them back?
Oh, I think we could do a lot better. We can't do much worse than we did in the last election.
You can double it?
I'm not a sophologist. I'm not a soothsayer. I'm a politician.
You don't have to be a sophologist to say we can get from 8 to 16.
I think we will do far, far better than last time. I also happen to think we will... I perfectly suspect, it's just an instinct, that we will also do better than people expect right now. Why? Because there is a great big gap in this election campaign.
Come on, give us a ballpark. 30,
no, I'm
40...
simply not going to get into numbers. No, because what's the point? Look, it's not a game of bingo.
Yeah, but you've got all these MPs. You've got Testament, you've got Simon Hughes, you've got Vince Cable, you've got Ed David. They're all waiting in the wings to come back.
And I hope they'll all win, and I'm sure they will.
Right, so what are you thinking then? 20, 30 seats?
The problem is, I don't think it's so interesting to your viewers about what number I pluck out of thin air. That's not the issue. The issue is...
Your expectations of this
are... My expectations are that we will do clearly much better than we did last time. We can't do much worse. But more than that, we will, hopefully, with a sizable parliamentary party, provide the effective lead the opposition against this self-harming, damaging hard Brexit, which Theresa May wants to garner a landslide majority to impose upon us.
And if that rump is sizable enough, could it go into government again? Could you work with Labour?
No, there is absolutely no prospect, no realistic prospect of Jeremy Corbyn becoming Prime Minister.
Are you ruling it out?
Look, it's just not going to happen. So whether I rule it out or not is irrelevant. It's just not going to happen. Look, can I surprise you? Let me be very candid with you. I think we should be very plain speaking in this campaign because I think most people know what's going to happen at the end of this process, which is that Theresa May will be Prime Minister on June the 9th. I actually think that most people realise that there's almost a foregone conclusion that the Conservatives will remain the party of government. The question then becomes, what kind of majority do they have? What kind of mandate do they claim? What do they then do for the next 5 years? Do they then expect, which is what they seem to expect, that opposition should be extinguished and they can impose...
I understand. You see yourself as
therefore, whilst
opposition.
The question... No, and that's... Therefore, back to your question, whilst when I was a leader back in 2010, the key test for the Liberal Democrats was how could we step up to the plate to provide responsible government?
But that might happen again.
No, the key test now is quite different. It's how we provide effective opposition. Because Labour...
But Tim Farron has said it would not be inconceivable, for example, to work with the Conservatives. Would you back him on that?
No way. You get Tim onto the programme and ask him. He's the leader. I'm not. But there's absolutely no way that the Liberal Democrats are either going to install Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister of this country. I don't think the British people are going to do that anyway. Nor are we going to sustain Theresa May in power to inflict on the country a self-harming, economically speaking,
Okay.
self-harming hard Brexit, which no one voted for last year. But so the question
We haven't got
is,
very much time. I just
well,
want to move... yeah, very
opposition
quickly.
is not something to be dismissed. Much though I enjoyed my time in government and felt we did a good job, I also actually value, it's one of the reasons I'm standing as a candidate, I value the importance of an effective opposition in a healthy democracy. We don't have that at the moment because Labour has collapsed.
That's
why we need a bigger
totally
Lib Dem
different
party.
now. And this is about Tim Farron. He got himself into a bit of hot water defining where liberal beliefs and Christian beliefs coincide. And yes, he said homosexuality is not a sin, but is he allowed to be a Christian thinker and a liberal? Because at the moment it seems that he's being put on the spot and being told to choose between his Christian beliefs, what he thinks of homosexuality, and the privacy of his mind, and his position as the Lib Dem leader.
I think you've said it. It's the privacy of his faith, which he should be able to hold and hold dearly in the private way that many people hold faith to themselves, or indeed don't at all. What he does as a legislator and as a politician, that is a legitimate...
But he wasn't really able to say that, so he had to come out today and say...
I'm just saying to you that my view about how politicians' faith affects their public duties, you should judge them not by what their private faith is, but what their public actions are as legislators. And as you know, he voted time and time again, alongside all other Liberal Democrats, in favour of anti-discrimination measures, in favour of equal marriage and so on. So I judge him surely by his actions as an MP, not by the, I think, somewhat sort of sanctimonious judgments about his own private faith. His own private faith is his. Let him have that. Let him have that freedom, that privacy of faith, but then also judge him by his actions as a legislator, which are clearly impeccably liberal ones.
Parting thought for George Osborne as he steps down, the man who, you might say, masterminded your decapitation.
Oh, do I have a parting thought for him? Well, good luck to him. I mean, good luck to him. I think, do you know what? I think it's quite telling that, however much I staunchly disagree with George Osborne over many years, he is a particular conservative. He has quite a metropolitan turn of mind. He believes in globalisation. He believes in a sort of slightly more cosmopolitan view of the world. If the Conservative Party can't retain people like that, and whatever you think, like or dislike George Osborne, he's a formidable figure in the Conservative Party. If the Conservative Party can't keep people like that, the danger is it becomes ever more narrow and sect-like as a party, not a broad church, and that won't serve the Conservative Party well in the long run.
Nick Clegg, thank you.
Thank you.